So, hello everyone, and welcome to Healing Through Sharing. I'm Rosanna from Balanced Path, and with me today I have Agnes Bieleka, who's a very special guest. All my guests are special, but Agnes has a special place in my heart because we've known each other for, oh my gosh, maybe 15 years. And so tonight, Agnes is going to talk about some of her greatest challenges or challenge. And Agnes, thank you so much for being here with us,
My
um,
pleasure.
joining me on this series. And so, Agnes, I'll just have you introduce yourself first before we get into the
Thank
challenge.
you. Thank you so much for having me, and it's an honor
Uh,
to be a guest on your series. Um, you know, what can I say about who I am? I think there's so many different personas that I need to just list them out. So I'm a wife, I'm a mother of three, I'm a woman, I'm a grandmother of two already. Um, I'm a solution focused professional. Um, I'm a Catholic woman. I am a college professor, and I'm an immigrant.
Excellent. Beautiful. You know what? I love every one of those personas. And I know that you're a wonderful mother, you're a wonderful everything, whatever, all those things that you listed. You're amazing at all of those things, and you're a young grandmother. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so let's talk about one of, I don't know how many challenges you'd like to talk about tonight, but is there a challenge that you had to overcome? And what was that challenge?
Having so many different roles in my life, you can only anticipate that I've had many, many challenges throughout my life, and uh, having to focus on one, or thinking which one is the greatest or most difficult to overcome, I have to say that that would be um, the nagging thoughts of regret that I would get, that would haunt me, that would come to my head, and very often they would keep me up at night. Um, and during those thoughts, I would regret not having finished a particular thing at a university, or not having applied for these jobs that then I'm sort of thinking that would have been good for me, or not having gone places that I could very well have gone to. And with those, there came sleepless nights and being exhausted during the days, and hardly being able to focus on tasks at hand. So it had made my life very, very difficult,
Mm.
physically. Although I know the thoughts had originated in my brain,
Hmm.
they affected my entire self. I was not good at any of those personas. I was
Hmm.
not good at completing my tasks at home,
Hmm.
at work, at other places that I am involved in. Yeah. So that used to be my real challenge.
Well, and you bring a great point because even though they were emotional challenges in your head and they started in your head, because they're growing, right? All the regrets, I'm sure, were growing and growing,
Mhm.
but it affects our physical body as well. So whatever emotional turmoil we're going through will affect us physically as well.
Absolutely.
And like for you, it affected all those personas, even though it may have come from one of those personas. I don't know. Like, so for example, you said about the university or the job. So I'm thinking that's your career area, the area of your career, but they affect all those other areas as well.
hmm
Yeah.
No, absolutely, you're correct. And yes, so typically they would start with an aspect of my professional life.
Mm-hmm.
And then just sort of diffuse onto the other areas, and to the point when I would doubt myself, or doubt my expertise, or doubt my place in the world, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there had been moments when, again, it was very, very challenging to continue going.
Mm-hmm. And so, what made you turn that around? I'm guessing that it's not a challenge for you anymore at this point.
Mm-hmm. Um, those thoughts do come back occasionally, but I think I'm better equipped now to handle them, or not to let them be so debilitating, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So what made me manage them better, perhaps that could be a word that we could use,
Mm-hmm.
is the solution focused approach, you know.
Mm-hmm.
um, I decided at one point, a year ago, I decided to better myself somehow, better myself. And I had been exposed to some coping strategies, some approaches, to help myself live the life the way I do. And
Mm-hmm.
just like many of us do, we look for help
Yes.
everywhere we can. And oftentimes it is some type of self-help, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so I started looking at programs and courses that I could better myself with, learning something that I could help myself be a better person, be a healthier person, be a better family member, a better professional. And I got reminded about the solution focused coaching, and
Mm-hmm.
the other program is solution focused counseling and therapy at University of Toronto. And I started exploring, and I signed up for everything that I could. And I completed the coaching certificate, and completed the counseling and therapy and solution focused certificate. But during those courses, we have many, many peer practices.
Mm-hmm.
And the key to the peer practice effectiveness is to bring a real issue, to bring a challenge that you really struggle with, that you want an improvement on.
Mm-hmm.
So I brought my nagging thoughts, like ruminating and regret, to one of those sessions. And and it began there, in that session. The
Mm-hmm.
colleague who, or the classmate who was the interviewer at the time, or the coach, with the solution focused approach, was able to direct me,
Mm-hmm.
to collaborate with me on the solutions to my issue that I was comfortable with, that I would know how to do, that I would know how to execute.
Mm-hmm.
And that allowed me, or equipped me with strategies, to manage those thoughts,
Right.
to do things when they come, to do things instead of them, to think things
Right.
instead of those thoughts.
Yeah.
And that was that moment when I realized, wow, this can work,
Mm-hmm.
on other people,
Right.
i.e.
Yeah.
clients, but it could definitely be that self-help that I had been searching for.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I sort of used the solution-focused approach as a self-help strategy to coach myself
Mm-hmm.
when those thoughts come. And they do come every now and then, but
Right.
again, now I know what to do.
Right. Because all these things never disappear 100%. Our
True.
negativity, our inner critic, our, that nagging regret thoughts, those
Yeah.
thoughts, they never disappear. But I love that, what you know when they're coming, and you know what to do. So instead of going down that rabbit hole, you're actually helping yourself get out of that,
Yes.
the solution based
Yes.
programming
Approach.
and
Yeah.
approach. Yeah. And so, um, I want to talk about that if we can. So, what kind of tools or what kind of strategies does one use for this type? For
Hmm. So now, it also builds up your self-awareness and recognizing the signs, as you
Mhm.
mentioned, when they are coming. And now I better see when I'm brought to that point,
Mhm.
when they start coming to the forefront of my head. So I become better at that too. And
Mhm.
when that moment is recognizable, I basically know what to do or what to start off with.
Mhm.
And what helps me really rail in those thoughts is thinking gratitude,
Mhm.
be grateful to the people in my life and be literal about it, be intentional about it.
Mhm.
What am I grateful, or rather, first, who am I grateful in my life for? And that
Mhm.
would be my husband, my children, my grandchildren,
Yeah.
my friends,
Mhm.
the people I work with, my students,
Yeah.
what am I grateful to them for?
Right.
These are the things that, we could sit here all night
Right.
listing the
Mhm.
many, many things that I have to be grateful for
Mhm.
to different people in my life. So those are always, they need to be there always. The thoughts of gratitude and appreciation,
Mhm.
what I appreciate them for, or why I appreciate them.
Yeah.
And then the next sort of step in my managing the regret thoughts is to be grateful to myself, and to be
Mhm.
grateful to myself for myself, for who I am, for the many personas that I've been managing, and
Mhm.
for the strength that come with that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not easy to be 5, 6, 7 personas in your life, to have all these roles.
Mhm.
And oftentimes it can be confusing too,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So to be grateful for that
Mhm.
and to appreciate myself. Look, Agnes, you have been good at being the
Yeah.
mom or the grandma or the colleague you
Yeah.
are. You have been good. And how do I know these things? Because those people who I appreciate have said things to me to
Mhm.
that effect. So
Yeah.
remembering how I know these things, how I know that what I accomplished, how I know how I know that I'm good at being mom or grandma or
Mhm.
my community member.
Mhm.
So I need to remind myself about that during those recurring thoughts when they
Yeah.
come. And the last thing in that is just to list my accomplishments.
Mhm.
I'm good at these things, and here is how it can be attested to.
Yeah.
I finished these courses lately.
Mhm.
I completed this and I finished this, and I have seen these things in my life, and I've helped as I could this many people in my life,
Mhm.
and this is how I have been useful. And this is how my life has been useful. And
Yeah.
this is how um, I don't have to regret, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
a minute longer, because
Yeah.
my life has been really busy, yet very fulfilling.
Mhm. And I love that, your gratitude list doesn't just list what you're grateful for. You take that extra step in saying what you appreciate about that thing,
Mhm.
whether it's a person or a thing or whatever. But you're just not listing, I'm grateful for the trees, I'm grateful for my kids, I'm grateful. But you take it that extra step, and that really makes a difference because
Mhm.
you're validating that gratefulness. You know how you are affecting people. How do you know? So again, you're proving to yourself that you've done well, and that you've helped people.
Mhm.
um, and
Mhm.
so a lot of the times, listing our accomplishments, we feel like we're bragging, or we don't deserve to list our accomplishments. We don't deserve to be happy, or um, you know grateful, or even um, I can't even think of the word right now, but um, when you accomplish something, you're proud. That's the
Mhm.
word. You're proud. So sometimes, we feel like, oh, we can't be proud. Even though I accomplished something. I remember when I completed my MBA, it was like, just I didn't really want to acknowledge myself for doing that, or I didn't want to celebrate. And you know what? We should celebrate all of our accomplishments, big or small. But I love that you're bringing that into your coping strategy.
Mhm.
You know,
Oh,
and
absolutely. And you
yeah,
know what? It's also very cultural too, right? Because
yes,
I also grew up in, I don't know about yours, but
yes,
I grew
same,
up in a culture where
yes,
I needed to be humble. I needed to keep my head down. And
yes,
yes, I can perform well. It is actually required to perform well, but I'm not to celebrate my own accomplishments, as you said.
yes,
So I
yes.
had to learn that. And you know what? It's an important learning because
Mhm.
my conclusion is that if I don't appreciate myself and don't celebrate myself, how can I ask others to celebrate me or
Right.
to appreciate me? I need to be able uh, to do that, to be
Yeah,
grateful to myself, for myself, with
yeah,
all the experiences, the bad
right.
ones and the good ones.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's true. It is a cultural thing because, yeah, we're not allowed to celebrate anything positive in our life because, it's bad luck, or, we just don't do that.
Right.
But I like what you said about, acknowledging yourself. And, a lot of people might think that's selfish, but I feel that, if we don't acknowledge ourselves, then we can't acknowledge others as well in the same way. But just acknowledging ourselves, then we can acknowledge others too.
Mhm.
And it's not like we want to be acknowledged before anybody else, but we just want to be acknowledged with everybody else. It's like that self-care. I'm not going to care about myself first. I'll care about myself the way I care about others. And a lot of the
Yes,
times we might put ourselves at the back burner, which isn't right. Yeah.
very true.
Yeah. I like the what you said about that self-awareness, because that is the first step.
Mhm.
um, because a lot of people might not have that self-awareness, so they might not feel, or they might know that they're stuck in that narrative in their minds. But um, understanding that there is help, and understanding that, yes, I do want to get out of this. I don't want to continue, with these regrets, these thoughts of regrets, or these
Mhm.
negative thoughts. And
Mhm.
so, do you have any advice on how someone can actually become self-aware and want to do that self development, that you know making themselves better?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, what comes to mind is definitely try the solution focused approach. And it's good to learn it, to practice it with
Mhm.
someone who has experience and who has some success with it.
Mm-hmm.
And because the approach is structured to
Mm-hmm.
capitalize on one's strengths and of those on those resources, on the people who are available in our lives, and
Mm-hmm.
focusing on our accomplishments. Those are the things that we learn during solution focused sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing to find your solutions, is the first step, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then identifying what those steps could be is, listening to yourself and
Right.
seeing um, what bothers me. It physically is definitely a signal of something. And
Right.
once we are not comfortable in a particular space,
Mm-hmm.
whether in our mind or in our body or in the environment, this is probably the signaling things to us that it would be good to talk with someone. And that would be the first step.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's very true. And it's part of that of my healing was the comfort of using solution focused approach in my own
Mm-hmm.
world, in my sleep time, in at my night, and I would practice those things on myself, with
Mm-hmm.
myself. It's good to approach somebody, to approach a professional, to sort of get some direction,
Right.
or to figure out together collaboratively, because that's the approach. It's very
Mm-hmm.
collaborative to identify those strengths, because we all have them. And as you mentioned, it's very difficult to appreciate yourself. It's not called for. It's
Mm-hmm.
shine a phone. It's
Yes.
something we didn't learn to do when we were little, but that's why we
Mm-hmm.
might consider um, learning how to do that about ourselves with somebody's help. And there is literature about it. If there is that hesitation to talk um, about it with a person, there is so much literature and various virtual opportunities to educate ourselves
Right.
in terms of solution focused approach, because it is a life changing approach and very,
Absolutely.
very helpful in all areas of life. And particularly to those who do not like talking with somebody else, because first, that the solution focused approach is oftentimes called brief.
Oh.
One session is often enough,
Hmm.
and our clients feel equipped after one session with strategies
Mm-hmm.
to figure out or to sort of implement the solutions
Right.
that they would build within the session. So could be that, and I'm sure there are other excellent options
Yeah.
out there that,
So, so
yeah,
will you be sharing some of that literature with me so that I can post it on the bottom of this video in the description?
absolutely, yes, yes,
And
definitely,
so
very
you're
good idea.
are you a practitioner or what's your title in this in the solution based
Mhm. So I'm a solution focused coach, and now I completed the certificate
okay.
program, both
Okay.
coach and counselor slash therapist
Mhm.
certificate program, but I'm now working on a professional designation. So
Excellent.
my designation will be, once completed,
Mhm.
will be a solution focused professional,
Perfect. Okay. And so
certified solution focused
excellent. So
professional.
I can put that information in the description so that if people would like to contact you to get
That
more
would be
info.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
perfect.
Thank you so
Perfect.
much.
I like the idea that, it's a brief process. So it's not like weeks and weeks of coaching, let's say.
Mhm.
So how does that happen just in one session? I mean, I can't wrap my head around it because I'm used to, coaching. I have programs that are, 6 weeks or 7 weeks or even 12 weeks. So
Mhm,
how does it, can you talk about what that process is in one session?
mhm. So, yeah, it's very, very interesting and so refreshing to learn that the
Mm,
solution-focused approach can be effective um, in one session,
mm,
sometimes 1.5 sessions. Of
right.
course, there are circumstances when more than one session
Of course.
um,
Yeah.
is needed or is directed
Mhm,
by somebody else, you
mhm.
know. So what happens, I cannot provide a
Of course.
transcription,
Yeah, of
but
course.
I can say that during a solution-focused session, the professional, whether it's a coach or a counselor or a
Mhm,
therapist, use a solution-focused approach interventions, questions, and statements,
mhm,
and working together with the client using the client's language. So all those tools are used to identify or bring to the surface or to the client's forefront of their
mhm.
mind that those the arsenal of things that they already have, where being that their skills, being that their resources that they might not have even thought of.
Right.
And sometimes during a session, the client is able to identify a plan that they will follow to
Mhm,
implement those solutions. So it can take various turns,
mhm,
and it's very, very client focused. So the professional does not need to have hours and hours to
mhm.
diagnose the problem. We don't do that. We don't
Right.
talk much about the problem. It's
Uh-huh.
not dismissed, it's important,
Mhm,
but we focus right from the beginning on finding collaboratively the
mhm.
solutions and means to, to that are useful to the
Yeah,
client
yeah.
to help them overcome a challenge.
I love that because it's like the client is actually participating in their own solution, and they are
Entirely.
entirely, yeah. And I love the way, the practitioner will help draw those strengths because sometimes, as individuals, if you ask me what my, top strengths are, you know, I'd have to really think hard about them because, we don't think about ourselves as having strengths.
Very true. This
Um,
is something
so,
we need to learn.
we don't think of ourselves as having those accomplishments and strengths, but I really
Yeah,
love this approach.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
And it's good to have someone else uh, help you list the
Yes,
things to be proud of,
yeah,
if
yeah.
and oftentimes, as we mentioned before, we don't focus on those things. Things
No.
become, a given. Like the good things often go unnoticed, and we focus on that one cold day in June, and the
Right.
weather is really bad in June because
Yes.
one day we had 15 degrees, but we
Yeah.
had 29 or 30 days, not in June, but 29 hot days.
But
So
because
that's what the professional in solution focused would help and guide the clients to focus on.
right, right. Because you're right, whatever we focus on grows more and more and more. And if you're focusing on that negative is going to overtake any positives that are happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love this approach and thank you for sharing. Is there anything else you want to add before we go or
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I
oh, is
hope
that
this
good?
has been useful. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think the important thing, for people to understand is that they're not alone. Um, you know, we all have those nagging thoughts, whether it's, regret or, things that we should have done or that we didn't do, or, feeling judged, or there's so
Mhm.
many things that, we feel, and we're
Mhm.
not alone when we feel these things. There's commonalities out there, but we're not alone. There's so much out there. You just have to be open.
Very
You
true.
have to you know, be comfortable or open to go out and seek that help, because the help is there. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you again so much. This has
Thank
been very
you.
enlightening, and I will have all that information for everybody in the description down below, so you can do your own research, connect with Agnes if you'd like, and yeah, and be well, because that's at the end of the day, we want to be emotionally and physically well. All right. So thank
Thank
you,
you very
Agnes.
much,
All
Susan.
right.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.